Now, now we need to talk about where does Bitcoin struggle? Where is Bitcoin still?
Transactions did get expensive and they did
having
get
problems?
slow.
But
they've
and obviously
been very, very cheap
the volatility.
And very, very fast.
We're watching this volatility
Lightning
unfold
network
today.
doesn't have to be used.
People
Now,
like Paul Krugman and Nouriel
now we need to
Roubini
talk about
and
where does
Joseph
Bitcoin
Stiglitz, who was
struggle?
mentioned earlier,
Where is
Warren
Bitcoin
Buffett, they have a
still?
point.
Transactions
Bitcoin is
did get
volatile,
expensive and they did
having
get
problems.
slow.
It's
And
hard to use
obviously
Bitcoin as a
very
day-to-day
cheap,
currency.
very fast.
We're watching this
But
volatility.
the
It's only
network
volatile
doesn't
for
have
larger
you.
priced items.
People
Now,
like Paul Krugman
today,
and Nouriel
what a
Roubini
value of
and
Bitcoin
Joseph
is $9,000 US dollars.
Where is
Your cup of
Bitcoin
coffee
still?
will not
Bitcoin
change
is
in
volatile.
price that much if Bitcoin goes up 10%.
It's hard to use Bitcoin as a
In the future, when one Bitcoin is over $100,000,
it's only volatile for
hopefully
larger
sooner than
price.
later.
You know, today,
$1,000 purchase,
Bitcoin
$2,000 purchase will not be that volatile with your cup of coffee moving
will
in
not
action,
change in
even
price
on a
that
short-term
much.
basis. So as more and more people start using Bitcoin, as more and more value ends up on chain, Bitcoin will become less and less volatile for other purchases. $2,000. And we can see it that the volatility of Bitcoin will eventually approach the volatility of the dollar-euro pair, which is one of the future we have. But here's where Bitcoin will become less and less have an advantage. This is a giant list of hyperinflation. We can see it that the volatility since 1900 only the first one. This is France in 1795. We have Germany in 1920. Here's where Bitcoin does. Lots of them happened in the 20s, the 40s. Well, this is lots happened in the 90s with the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I got that from a book, and the book was written right after Zimbabwe had its hyperinflation. So I had to look for these. So all of these in blue, these are all hyperinflation incidents. Zimbabwe again. Right now we're watching it in Venezuela and Turkey and others. So what was my definition for hyperinflation? Greater than 50% devaluation of your currency in approximately 30 days. If your currency lost half its value, if you became 50% poorer with your savings in less than 30 days, your country is gone. It's not as bad as these. Greater than this, it's not as bad as Venezuela, but it's bad enough to affect your life. Your currency lost half. This is the latest in Venezuela. This is the latest in Zimbabwe. And most hyperinflation incidents are political events. No matter how much money do you spend, these there's also crazy one-day shocks in development. This is what happened when the Brexit vote went against the consensus. And the pound moved 10% in one day against the US dollar and the euro. And when the Swiss peg broke, Swiss franc moved 30% against the euro, which is insane in the European region. And the biggest issue, of course, with Bitcoin is coin security. This goes back to the double-edged sword of being unconfiscatable. If you don't properly protect your Bitcoin, it will be hacked. Exchanges are most vulnerable because that's where there is a large amount of Bitcoin being stored. Hacks could be internal, could be external, and solutions are getting better, but it's hard. We have some good hardware wallets, cold storage, but constant incidents of getting hacked. And these are the things that will slow down Bitcoin adoption. This is how it competes. This is on the verge of being solved, but this still has some time. So I think it will take a little bit longer for people to really get used to Bitcoin and start to adopt it. So now let's take a few minutes and talk about things that will drive this mass adoption. And as unfortunate it is to say, a lot of it will come from the inefficiencies in the traditional financial world. But my biggest one is my continued expectation that the European common currency is not sustainable long term. Each country has its own leaders, they have their own languages, they have their own, they're very different. Greece is not like Germany. Very different mentality, very different lifestyles. Having this common currency that is controlled by politicians and economists, I don't believe is going to last. So I think that a breakup or even a country like Greece leaving the European Union would significantly make Europeans be interested in Bitcoin. We saw this in 2015 during the Greek banking shutdown. Italy was close to a banking holiday, and that's when neighboring countries start to say, hey, I want access to my money if my banks close. And I think that Europe will be big for mass adoption. Now, another area that could drive people into Bitcoin is the continued fight against cash. This elimination of cash is potential driver into Bitcoin. Now, this is a great article from the Harvard Business Review, and they talked about the 3 reasons why governments want to eliminate cash. One of them is, remember those pictures that we had that I showed you earlier, with everyone rushing to the bank to withdraw their cash? Well, if there's no cash, there's no ATM machines. Those pictures will never be seen again. There is nothing to withdraw if there's no cash. Also, if there's no cash, the government can set any monetary policy that they like. They can put negative interest rates in. Hey, you have too much money in your bank account. We want you to spend that money. We will tax you 5% of your money every year. We'll just take it unless you go out and spend it. And you don't have the ability to exit the system. You can exit it by buying real estate. You can exit it by buying other things, but they're registered things, so they can tax those things as well if they don't feel like you're spending the money. Now, of course, the biggest reason is every government in the world thinks that every one of their citizens is evading taxes, and that's why they want cash. More true in some countries than others. Here is India, where it's estimated that 30 to 44% of GDP is not being calculated because of their cash economy. Also probably why India attempted to just eliminate their biggest bills, which was their 500 and 1,000 rupee note, which are about $5 or so. And they said they were going to replace it with a 2,000 rupee note, except no banks had the 2,000 rupee note, or not enough of them, and it created a giant insanity. Now, some governments have to spend more money maintaining a cash economy. China, India, most of Europe, for reasons I don't actually understand. Mexico, this is, if it's in red, that means it's very expensive to keep cash going, preventing counterfeit, securing cash, things like that. Blue, that means it's cheap. And this is a great metric showing you which countries are technologically ready to eliminate cash. And you can see Belgium, Germany, France, they are ready technologically to eliminate cash, and they would benefit because they're in red. India would actually benefit the most because they're all the way on the right, but they're also all the way down, so they're not technologically ready. Ironically, that's where most of our tech support is, but they're not technologically ready to eliminate their cash economy. KYC is rising. There was another presentation earlier talking about KYC. In France, for example, you have to identify yourself if you're going to spend more than 1,000 euros in cash. What I've been really paying attention to, because as I'm here traveling through Africa, I am very closely paying attention to your how much money can you enter a country with and how much money you can exit a country with. And it gets kind of insane. I looked up because one of the countries I was going to visit is Ethiopia. And apparently, if I leave Ethiopia with more than 1,000 of their local money, I can get arrested. Anybody want to take a guess how much US dollars worth is 1,000, or even in Rand, because I can do that math. So 1,000 local Ethiopian money is 30 US dollars. So so you really want to keep an eye on entry and exit laws with how much money you can travel in and out. I can go in and out with up to 3,000 US dollars, but I can't leave with 30 of their own currency. Okay, so you got to be very, very careful on that. Here are some crazy laws from the US where a state passed a law saying you cannot sell your second-hand goods for cash. So if you have a bicycle and you want to sell it for $20, you somehow cannot accept a $20 bill. I actually can't find this law these days. I think they're kind of hiding it because they realized how silly that was. Germany is removing the collector market. Germany is saying, hey, if you have anything of value over 100 euros, you have to register it. So if you have a painting in your living room that is worth over 100 euros, you are supposed to tell the government you have that painting because, again, that area of Europe knows real well what it's like to hide your money in times of stress. This is World War II, where people built fake wine cellars and they hid their wine and they moved the money into art. So all of these crackdowns are happening around the world, and Bitcoin will be seen as a safe haven. So those are some of the major economic global events that will drive people into Bitcoin whose time has come. I have about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll leave 5 minutes for questions. And I do want to talk about why I believe that it's Bitcoin and only Bitcoin and not this concept of multi-currencies and multi-blockchains. One of my friends, Giacomo Zucco, had an excellent tweet where I don't like to call myself a Bitcoin maximalist. I've turned that to more a shitcoin minimalist or altcoin minimalist because I don't believe that every single person should have their own money. It's almost like barter. So what is Bitcoin maximalism? And he defines it as it's a moderate common sense view that Bitcoin perhaps maybe can succeed. Because here are your opposite extremes. You have the no-coiner, which is your Nouriel Roubini, where not even Bitcoin or anything else in crypto can succeed. And then you have your multi-coiner. This is your Vitalik Buterin or Justin Sun or Dan Larimer or anyone else that creates an altcoin. Bitcoin is infinitely replicatable, and my clone of it is best, even though none of them, I believe, are decentralized. So that is your Nouriel versus Vitalik. I break up the entire crypto space into a 4-part Venn diagram. We have the proof of work coins. We have the ICOs and airdrops. We have the blockchains, which are databases. And then we have proof of stake or proof of something other than work. And of course, a lot of these things intersect. Real quick, I talked about Bitcoin the whole time, so I do want to talk about blockchain. What is blockchain? Well, since the word blockchain was not in Satoshi's white paper, where does the word come from? It comes from right here. It was a comment Satoshi put in the Bitcoin code. And it says when they solve proof of work, they broadcast the block to everyone, and the block is added to the blockchain. He was just describing the way proof of work works. One more great tweet. When you hear someone says, I'm building this blockchain, I'm solving all of Bitcoin's problems, be real careful and really look into, how does he know what Bitcoin's problems are? What qualifies him to solve Bitcoin's problems? Because Bitcoin didn't just come randomly. Bitcoin was the result of over a decade of research of trying to solve the problem. Here is an example of people trying to solve the problem to create Bitcoin. Of course, here it is. Personally, I like the idea of Hashcash. That was Adam Back's work from the late 90s. If and only if it's structured like a real currency, as opposed to simply proof of work. In the real world, you pay for resources used. In many cases, this should also apply to peer-to-peer and other computer systems. Of course, getting Hashcash workable as a real currency is extremely difficult. I've thought of a scheme that would work. Coins are signed by owner and can only be signed to a different owner by the owner. Except you need a decentralized central database of all the Hashcash that's been minted. Unworkable. Shit. Spend twice problem. When was this written and who wrote it? So this was written by the 15-year-old Peter Todd on a Saturday afternoon, emailing with Hal Finney in 2001. So these are the people that were trying to solve this problem. And Satoshi finally did it, or the group Satoshi finally did it in 2009. And these people, well, Hal Finney is no longer with us. Peter Todd still is, and several others that were involved. I do want to wrap this up. I want to mention real quick why I no longer believe in Litecoin, and well, I never really did, but why Litecoin can't compete. And that's because also from Saifedean's book that pointed out real well that while silver was great money alongside gold, because silver was the micropayment to gold, in modern technology, if we go back to the gold standard, gold will be backing digital money. So you can spend gold at any scale. You don't need a micropayment. There's no longer a silver to gold. Silver will lose its monetary property over time, unless you think we're going back to a world with no electricity. Okay? So once Lightning Network is fully solving the micropayment problem, there will be no need for Litecoin. And once we have full fungibility in Bitcoin as a second layer solution, there will not be a need for these privacy-centric tokens that no one really uses even today very much. All right, I'll end it there. I might have time for one or two questions, but please check me out on YouTube. I have lots of different presentations, lots of different podcasts. And if you're in the area of the conferences right there, Unconfiscatable, Financial Summit, or Understanding Bitcoin, please check those out. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tone. I can see one hand at the back. Carl, there's a question there.
Should we have a microphone coming around?
Yeah.
Hi, Tone. That was a great talk. I really enjoyed it, maybe because I agreed with all of it. You will be familiar with the stock-to-flow writings of Plan B on Twitter.
Yes.
I'm curious if that all holds up in your estimation, because I'm not a statistician, but apparently it's been validated. What is your gut feel or your educated feel on that
Sure.
paper?
Yeah, so the stock-to-flow was initially introduced in Saifedean's book, and Plan B, made it his, life's work to try and apply it to the actual price of Bitcoin in order to project the future price of Bitcoin. Now, it has been holding up fairly well up to this point. Now, I do think that it's a little optimistic because there are short-term fluctuations. I also think that it's going to fall a little bit short. I do believe that the price of Bitcoin will go up over time. Do I expect Bitcoin to be 100,000 by the end of next year, like the stock-to-flow model of Plan B says? It would be great. I would be very happy, but realistically, I'm not expecting that. So I think that model will be adjusted. I think adoption of Bitcoin is actually slowed by all of these other cryptocurrencies and people, selling you fake Bitcoins left and right. So I think that has slowed us down. I think I really like the crypto space better in 24, like during the last bubble than this most recent one, because everyone was a Bitcoiner. Everyone was trying to get businesses to accept Bitcoin. Everyone was on the same page, and Bitcoin could have really taken off with mass adoption. But today, everyone's promoting their own currency instead of Bitcoin. So it'll take longer, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident Bitcoin will still win. I don't hold any other crypto except Bitcoin. Wait for the mic for the recordings.
Yeah.
Or I can repeat your question.
Okay.
Oh, there's a mic over there. Sorry. We'll get you after. Yeah.
Hi,
Maybe
Tim.
I know my time is up, but I'll answer them quick. Yeah.
Do you think Bitcoin has healed from the ICO craze?
Bitcoin has healed?
Yes, the price.
I do. Look, the chances that Bitcoin will fall below 3,000 to me is now very, very small. As all of you know that watch me, I'm like a perpetual bear. I am expecting Bitcoin to fall a little more here. But after the halving, I do expect Bitcoin to start to rise. This whole coronavirus scare and the economic slowdown is also going to hurt Bitcoin a little bit. But yeah, Bitcoin has recovered from the ICO. I think that stupidity is past us. But people are still getting caught in Ponzi schemes like the Plus token and God knows what else. I know Triple M was rampant here. And real quick, I'll try to answer in 2 sentences.
I'm just concerned about just last week, India, the Supreme Court actually has abolished the ban, and then South Korea came out with something awesome to,
Well, India, yes. What was the other one?
So India and then South Korea.
South Korea. I haven't heard of South Korea news.
It's like now the exchanges are allowed to, do business and.
Oh, great. Look, in India, that's not going to make much of a difference. Like all the exchanges, all the businesses already shut down. So just because the central bank said it's not a crime doesn't mean that the financial sector is. They'll find other ways to slow it down. Again, I'm looking for. South Korea is also good. Look, eventually people will just use it. As much as some countries don't like the internet, there's not much they can do about it, right?
So you think that did not actually influence? It's strange that all these news came within such a short period, and within the same period, we have price drop from 9,000.
No, it's independent of that. The price drop, I believe, has more to do with the economic slowdown when people lose their jobs because of this disruption. You're not going to go out and buy speculative currency like Bitcoin. All right, thank you so much, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Changing the tempo slightly. So we're moving from a lot of conversations are in the blockchain space to something more in the crypto and Bitcoin space. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Vays here. He's a former Wall Street man, if I can put it that way. And when I asked him where he lives at the moment, he said, I'm nomadic. I don't really have a home or a country right now because I'm traveling so much. So he is here from overseas, and please welcome him up on stage. Thank you. It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the conference. Very happy to be in South Africa, my first time in South Africa. So I'm really looking forward to it. Spent a little bit of time in Cape Town and now seeing Johannesburg. I'm going to jump right into the presentation.
Changing the tempo slightly. So we're moving from a lot of conversations are in the blockchain space to something more in the crypto and Bitcoin space. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Vays here. He's a former Wall Street man, if I can put it that way. And when I asked him where he lives at the moment, he said, I'm nomadic. I don't really have a home or a country right now because I'm traveling so much. So he is here from overseas, and please welcome him up on stage. Thank you. It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the conference. Very happy to be in South Africa, my first time in South Africa. So I'm really looking forward to it. Spent a little bit of time in Cape Town and now seeing Johannesburg. I'm going to jump right into the presentation, but how many of you are familiar with my work, seen me on YouTube, read some of my articles? All right, great. I don't really consider myself an OG, but I have now been around for more than half of Bitcoin's lifetime, which is great. I have a YouTube channel, and I organize conferences around the world as well. Unconfiscatable, Las Vegas, Understanding Bitcoin in Malta, and the Financial Summit for Traders and Hedge Funds. So the name of this presentation is Bitcoin Value Proposition, and I will be focusing on Bitcoin. I don't really consider myself an OG, but I have now been around for more than half of started with Bitcoin, and which is great. I have a YouTube channel, and I organize conferences around the world. Las Vegas, Understanding Bitcoin in Las Vegas, Understanding Bitcoin in Malta. And what you see behind me is the price of shares of Bitcoin. I really should update that. So the name of this presentation, I don't really consider myself an OG. Financial Summit of 2008, with the Genesis block launching a few months later. And in the abstract, he explains it very, very clearly what he's releasing. So I will just read a small part. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that can't be changed without redoing the proof of work. Now, in order to write his white paper, in order to launch the system, Satoshi had to use work that came before him. One of those is from Adam Back and Hashcash, who's currently the CEO of Blockstream. We'll get back to that in a second. Probably one of the most interesting parts about the Satoshi white paper is the word blockchain is never mentioned in the Satoshi white paper, those of you that have read it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. So when Bitcoin first comes out, the entire 2009 is just an interesting thing. It has no financial value. You are actually creating Bitcoin, you're mining Bitcoin, you're paying electricity. And that is the part that made Bitcoin decentralized. The fact that it had no value. You had to always spend value, not knowing if you're ever going to get anything for it. But the first financial use case of Bitcoin was suggested in very late 2010 by a Bitcoin Core developer at the time named Amir Taki. And he suggested it because WikiLeaks, which was releasing some not very flattering documents for the US government, was looking to get shut down. The US Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, all payment methods that people were using to donate money to WikiLeaks to keep their servers up and running got shut down. And Amir Taki proposed, hey, WikiLeaks should start accepting Bitcoin in order to finance themselves. And Satoshi immediately replied, and he was not happy with the idea.